In an effort to get outside of the house more, I've decided to start making videos about going to different places in Orlando. And why not start off the first video of going outside and touching grass, then to learn about history. So today we're gonna go to a couple of places that Google Maps has listed as historical landmarks that are in the Orlando area. Now, some of these aren't really historical landmarks, but you know, whatever. The Lake Apopka Historical Pump House was built in 2003 and filters about 40% of the lake's volume a year, removing 2.2 metric tons of phosphorus and 4,300 tons of suspended solids. This is all in an effort to undo the dumping of agricultural waste in the 1940s, which made the lake toxic. Not sure how anyone can call something made in 2003 a historic building, but whatever. It's basically just where everyone on Google Maps posts their pictures of the wildlife around here, since this is just one of the only stops that you can make on the North Lake Apopka Nature Drive. But other than that, it's just a cinder block building with 3 pumps in it, so I don't know why it's historic at all. Especially since it's such a new building that has strictly utilitarian function. This historical monument is kind of a weird one. Basically, on Google Maps, it just says historical marker, and then there is no explanation at all anywhere that I could find as to what this is supposed to be, but there is a single image that kind of shows like there's a plaque on the ground, so we're gonna go check it out. There's fucking nothing here, dude. Here we have the Fletcher Park Monument, which, if we read the marker, says to perpetuate for future generations these large cypress trees. And the plaque here explains that basically a man named Austin B. Fletcher owned 38 acres of land between Kissimmee and Haines City. When he died in 1923, Tufts College, the college he attended in Massachusetts, was the principal beneficiary of his estate, and in 1935, Tufts College deeded the land to the state of Florida. Now, the arborists among us will notice there aren't any cypress trees around here. There's just a museum, and there's 192 and a big billboard. That's because less than 10 years after the land being deeded to Florida, the park was destroyed because of the old Tampa Highway Widening Project. Now that park used to be about 40 miles that way, somewhere on SR 572, and that's just less than a 5-mile stretch of road between two different other highways with pretty much nothing on it. This is basically the only historical landmark that's actually a historical landmark on this video. This lighthouse was a major player in the booming steamboat industry because, I mean, how else are you going to get around Florida in the 1800s if it wasn't through all the waterways around here? But using all the waterways to get around kind of ended around 1885 when the major railroads started actually getting built around here. And now this lighthouse is just a centerpiece for this huge lake. Kind of a swampy lake, not really any open pieces of water. And there's just this nice park that is around here. Now the lighthouse is the centerpiece for the Kissimmee Lakefront Park, which is just a nice little spot with a bunch of benches and tables and park things, fishing, whatever. There's also a trail that goes around the lake, and it ends up over at that bridge behind this bush over here. And then it does go around that way too, but not very far, and it kind of just ends in that swampland over there. But back in the day, there's a canal somewhere on the other side of the lake over there that goes all the way to Miami, and then out to the ocean. This right here is the Cal Palmer Memorial Building. It's a tiny house. This tiny house on Main Street, in the middle of Windermere, is where Cal Palmer lived. He founded the Windermere Improvement Company, which in 1911, Mr. Palmer used to purchase all of the lots of Windermere for $10,000. And if you know anything about Windermere, then that probably sounds insane, because today you can't find a house here for less than $500,000. But he didn't see all that success, as he built this town from a population of 2 in 1910 to 500 at the time of his death at the age of 96 in 1965. There are around 3,000 people living here now. Still pretty impressive that some dude moved from Ohio to Florida and then just bought a ton of land and then made a town that's pretty well off 100 years later. Our next stop on the historical landmarks that we're going to is less of a historic landmark and more of a art gallery and also history museum that is all under the same place, which is the Art and History Museums of Maitland. But it is kind of a historical location, as it was founded in 1937 by Jules Andre Smith. Now, pretty much all of Jules Andre Smith's works is going to be in the main art gallery, which is labeled 1 on the map here. And while we're talking about the map, it might seem like there's a lot of stuff to look at here, but this is the entire map. And now this is a map of the places that you can actually go. And most of these are just footpaths between different private studios that they have, because this was founded as an art colony, a place for artists to go and do art. It still does that. So a lot of the studios are made private, or they're just classrooms. So pretty much the only places to actually go would be number 15, which is just a garden field sort of area. Connected to that is the Anne Russell Courtyard, which is a pretty nice little place to sit. They've got benches. It's just a enclosed little courtyard inside this, what I'm guessing was someone's house at some point. Number 1, which is the art gallery, which just has Jules Andre Smith's works in it. So if you're interested in these types of artworks and seeing them in person, then that's where you'd go. And then probably the most interesting part of this that you can't really view online would be the Mayan courtyard, the chapel, and the West Garden, which is pretty much just a big flat open area with one wall of Mayan architecture type of thing. I didn't even bother going into the Germain Marvel building. The Rotary Plaza is also just a big flat piece of concrete on the ground. That's as far as art goes. And then they have the Maitland History Museum that's pretty much next door, but also part of the same group of buildings, which is very 1930s to 1960s sort of stuff in there. And then out the back of the History Museum is the Telephone Museum, which is 2 rooms. One room being a bunch of automated switches for old telephone systems, and then the other room just showcasing different telephones and things related to telephones, I guess. It's basically the entire place.
We spend so much of our life walking around, looking with never seeing.